Joining us today, we couldn't be happier as we look ahead to the June 10th baseball draft is Jim Callis, the senior writer for MLB Pipeline. He has been covering this for a long, long time, and there's really nobody you'd rather talk to than Jim Callis. Jim, first of all, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And how's everything on your end with your family?
Yeah, everything's good. I appreciate you guys having me. It's just as we were talking a little bit before we came on camera here, we both have, it seems like a lot of college and grad students in both households and a lot of dogs in both households. And it sounds like we're both doing as safe and well as we can. So good news on both our fronts, I guess.
We wanted to talk to you. Tigers obviously are the number one overall pick for the second time in 3 years. You're the perfect person to talk to. Before we get into kind of how the Tigers farm system has certainly progressed in recent years and some of the things that we can look for in this year's draft, I want to get your feel, kind of the overall big picture look at what are some of the first things that come to your mind that fans should know about when you hear about a draft that is normally 40 rounds, now down to 5 rounds? What are just some of the first things that you think about that fans should be aware of? And then we'll talk about some of the long-term implications too.
Yeah, I do think the 5 rounds will be similar to what the first 5 rounds would look like in a normal draft. I still think there are going to be a number of top high school players who sign, and teams will find money in their bonus pools to sign them. I think the biggest difference this year is that guys just didn't have much time to step forward if they weren't already known.
Is the personal side maybe the side that got hurt the most? I mean, are these kind of the valuable months for just getting to know that guy that you might want to draft a little bit better? Or do you think they already had a good feel based on what you just talked about with all the work they've done in previous years, previous months?
You know, I actually think you almost have a better feel for players this year. It's more that NFL style, what you kind of hear about at the combine where they get the individual meetings, they bring the guy in the room. And I mean, we don't have quarterbacks drawing plays up on the whiteboard, but I do think the teams are getting more one-on-one FaceTime, even though it's not in person, it's over Zoom. But I think teams are doing a lot more than that. So I actually feel like this year they might have better feel for the player's personality than they would in a typical year.
How about looking ahead a little bit, Jim, about the years to come, the high school kids who might now go to college because they didn't get drafted, the college junior who might stay an extra year because he didn't go where he wanted to go in the draft. How do you think this affects future years of the draft? And also I'm thinking about that influx of good young talent into pro baseball.
So if you're one of those players, and most of them are college juniors, your choice is I can sign for $20,000 or I can go back to college and try my chances next year. The problem is I do think some of those guys will sign for $20,000 because if you went to college and your career goal is to play pro ball, in a lot of cases you probably should sign for 20. If you were there to maybe pursue a pro career but also get a degree, that's different. But the problem is if everybody goes back, let's say all the college juniors this year, it won't be all of them, let's say a high percentage of them go back, all of a sudden a bunch of guys who are going to go round 6 to 20 this year are going to be in next year's draft with the guys who would have gone round 6 to 20 that year. Well, the math tells you only half those guys can go in round 6 to 20.
So how much does that hurt the Tigers not having those, let's say, first round picks or first picks in each round from rounds, 6 to 10 or wherever you think it's really advantageous to have that?
Yeah. It hurts them some. I mean, I think it kind of hurts everybody somewhat equally. But where it hurts them is if you had a 10-round draft, your bonus pool is $1 million bigger, roughly. Theirs will be a little bit bigger. They have the second highest bonus pool. The Orioles have a slightly higher bonus pool because of where the compensation picks fall. And it would give them the opportunity to, maybe if you saved money on the number 1 pick, or you save money with your second rounder to move money around and go big in the 6th round or the 7th round. With 5 rounds, it's kind of tougher to do. It's a huge advantage to have the first pick on the 3rd day of the draft, which is usually the 11th round, because the Tigers, in a 10-round draft might have a decent amount of money left over in their bonus pool. And then they can make a bunch of phone calls after day 2 ends to find out, okay, who might sign? Is there a guy who might take $750,000 in the 11th round? So it hurts them some, but I'm sure if you ask the Tigers, they tell you, and I think all the teams would tell you, they'd rather make more picks and get more players. I mean, I'm not saying the draft's like lottery tickets, but like the more lottery tickets you buy, the better chance you have of winning. And teams would like to, buy more lottery tickets and have more draft picks if they could.
Before we talk about who you think might be at that 1-1 spot or who the Tigers might select there, it does suggest that in those next 4 rounds, there's some talent to be had. Give Tigers fans a feel for the kind of talent the Tigers might pick up in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I mean, the deepest part of this draft is college pitching, and it's kind of cyclical because last year was, I thought, the worst year for college pitching in terms of guys who belonged in the first round I'd ever seen in 30 years, and a lot of evaluators felt the same way. I think it's very possible. We'll talk about the number 1 pick. I think they're going to take a hitter at number 1. And I think when they pick again, and I think it's pick 38, I think the first pick of the second round is 38. I think the Tigers, the odds would be that they would take a pitcher because that's what the draft is deepest in, a college pitcher. And it's very likely they'll get a college pitcher at 37 who might have been like a top 20 overall pick last year.
Let's talk about that number 1 overall pick, second time in 3 years. I did notice in December, you had Austin Martin in that number 1 spot. And then when you did, I think your most recent was just a little over a week ago, Spencer Torkelson, which seems to be the consensus, who the Tigers are going to pick with number 1. Austin Martin, Asa Lacy, Emerson Hancock seem to be the consensus top 4. You're feeling pretty good about now Spencer Torkelson at that number 1 spot?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's locked in. I mean, this is just a strange year in so many ways. That you like I'd say 2 years ago, it wasn't locked in, but you're like, okay, it's got to be Casey Mize. Everybody kind of felt like it was going to be Casey Mize going number 1. This year there's a lot less chatter just because people aren't running into each other at games. But I do feel like it's Spencer Torkelson. I've felt for a while just talking to people that not that you draft for need, but that because the Tigers farm system is so strong in pitching compared to hitting, with Casey Mize and Matt Manning and Tarek Skubal and Alex Faedo and other guys, that a pitcher would really have to blow everybody away to be the selection. Spencer Torkelson's bat is just too good. I mean, he's got tremendous raw power that translates into games. I mean, he broke Barry Bonds' home run record as a freshman. If his junior season hadn't ended this year prematurely, he was 2 home runs away from breaking Arizona State's all-time career home run record held by Bob Horner. But he's also just a gifted hitter. I mean, he's one of the best hitters in the draft. He's the best power hitter in the draft. He's got some of the best plate discipline in the draft. I know he's only a first baseman. I keep getting tweets from Tigers fans like, oh, are we really going to take a first baseman? Why a first baseman? And I keep telling them, like, this guy, Torkelson maybe could play left field. Third base is a long shot, but it doesn't matter. This guy's bat is so good. I had one scouting director tell me he thought Torkelson was the most major league ready draft hitter he'd ever seen. And I really think he's the best offensive player to come out of college in the draft, probably since Mark Teixeira back in 2001. This guy is a generational type hitter.
Before we let you go, Jim, just if you could just kind of give Tigers fans a feel for, as we said, you've been watching this a long time, evaluating a long time, how far the Tiger farm system has come. Yeah, no, I mean, when I was at Baseball America, we'd rank the farm systems every year, and the Tigers, for whatever reason, were perennially at the bottom. And I know it's not, I don't have the actual ranking on top of my head, but at MLB Pipeline now, we've got them in our top 10 farm systems. And I want to say, going back to when I was at Baseball America, even before I was there, I think they started ranking farm systems in 1984. Tigers farm system ranked in the top 10 literally just once before this year. Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of combining our list now with their list. But like they're friendly, not a good farm system. They were either middle of the pack or down toward the bottom. And yeah, I mean they've really built up the system. I mean, look, they've made some trades. The Verlander trade, you hate to see Justin Verlander go, but they brought in some interesting prospects. I still think Franklin Perez has a chance to be really good if he can stay healthy. They made some great draft picks, not just Casey Mize with the number 1 overall pick, but Matt Manning looks like he's going to be a star. And high school right-handers are risky, and there are people who tell you never take a high school right-hander in the first round. And Matt Manning looks like he's going to be pretty good to me. Tarek Skubal was a 9th-round pick that looks like he's going to be really good. And I just think they've done a nice job of building up the system. I'm interested to see how guys like, say, Parker Meadows develops. I think Riley Green. It seems like it was a year ago, doesn't it? But like he was tearing up spring training. That seems like that was 12 months ago, and it was really only 2 months ago. But I think Riley Green has a chance to be a special hitter. And like I said, I mean, the farm system, I think, is in the best shape it's been in decades. And I know, obviously, Tigers had a bad year last year, which is why they're picking number 1. But you can kind of look at a future where like maybe you have the lineup is built around, Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson batting in the middle of the lineup. And you've got Mize and Skubal and Manning and Faedo and others in the rotation. I think they have a chance to be a pretty good team in a couple of years.
Jim Callis, senior writer for MLB Pipeline and really draft guru. And Jim, thank you so much for your time, your insight. I just love hearing about not only what's happening this year, but how you look at it down the road. Really interesting, and we really appreciate your time. Great talking with you.
I enjoyed talking with you too. Thanks for having me.